Age of Men is over. The time of the Orc has come.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Goblin King channel. Today's video is actually going to be a video idea suggested by a viewer on the channel, and we're going to be talking about Gandalf. So this video is kind of going to be a direct contrast to Sauron, because in the Sauron video, we talked a lot about like what Sauron was doing to make sure he won the war, and we're going to see kind of the flip side, like what was Gandalf doing during that time period. And I wanted to say a massive shout out to History Fan 4768D for the video idea. So again, before we get into the video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment for more of this type of content, please do. And let's get into it. So Gandalf does quite a lot during this time period, and especially looking specifically at the War of the Ring, because Gandalf couldn't do a ton before then because he wasn't really in the place of power that was given to Sauron. And Gandalf was actively working to reveal Sauron being back, whether that being in Dol Guldur, helping the dwarves reclaim Erebor, which is this has been talked about a lot. The entire idea there was not so much about the dwarves reclaiming their stronghold. It was more of getting rid of the problem of Smaug, and two, not letting Sauron get all of the wealth of Erebor, and also a stronger foothold in the north. Because again, if Erebor was to fall, just more and more of the east, you start pushing further back towards the Misty Mountains of actual strongholds of the free people. And we know Erebor is a very good place to hold out as well. So when you look at those ideas, Gandalf was extremely valuable then, because if Smaug would have teamed up with Sauron, that could have been extremely detrimental to the free people, and would have just been another thing that I think would have pushed forward Sauron's war and revealing himself much quicker. And again, to me, that was one of Gandalf's first things that was just hugely influential. Now, another thing that Gandalf does that I think is hugely influential of how everything plays out, Gandalf's kind of fascination with hobbits. Whereas everybody else saw the hobbits as kind of these weaker, lower strength people that, again, just kind of stayed to themselves, Gandalf dove a little deeper and saw what is maybe more important, their inner strength. We talk about something like Frodo, right? How does Frodo survive with getting pierced by a Morgul blade for so long because of his inner fight? And something that I think the Peter Jackson films actually did wrong was that when Frodo finally makes it to Rivendell and he crosses the river, he has this final moment of, even in his lowest point where the world is fading, he has this moment where he rises his sword up in defiance, kind of how Arwen does in the movies, but that's just Frodo alone with Glorfindel's horse. That's a moment that I think shows exactly why the hobbits are so important, because they add a different perspective, and they have this inner strength that even the most strong people do not have at this point, that can be corrupted. Someone like Boromir, who is super strong because of desperation, and I think a lack of people understanding him or taking his advice, he, being super strong and a great fighter and being brave and loyal, falls under the temptation of the ring, while someone like Frodo really is able to battle with the temptation of the ring for far longer than anyone else can. And Gandalf sets that in motion with putting Bilbo on this quest, and then later involving the Shire heavily later on. And I think when you look at the wise as a whole, Gandalf is the one that figures out what the ring is. If Gandalf had not been the one able to go to Minas Tirith, figure out what the ring was, it's very likely the ring would have been taken by the Nazgul much earlier, and Sauron would have won. And we look at Gandalf as this character that is basically our guide through Book 1, where the Fellowship of the Ring is really about Gandalf setting the stage of the story, guiding Frodo in the ring until he falls in Moria to the Balrog, and that's when things kind of take a different turn, because there was never a plan there. Aragorn doesn't know exactly what to do, and I think Frodo, it's been building this entire way through the whole book. I just got done with Fellowship of the Ring, so I'm going to do a whole book analysis on it. It's my favorite book. It's been the whole idea of the entire book, right? When we look at Frodo, he kind of sets out thinking that he's going to be pretty much alone going to Rivendell. Pippin and Merry were never really supposed to come with Frodo, but they uncover his whole plan. But Frodo, the idea is that even on a smaller scale, when Frodo doesn't really know the full impact of the ring and what it can do to people, Frodo did not want to bring Merry and Pippin into danger and all of this. And that's something that weighs heavily on Frodo's mind as he understands the temptation of the ring and how it affects people around him, like Boromir. And Gandalf, to me, is this very interesting character, because Gandalf, after this point, takes a new role. Instead of guiding the ring, he can't really do that anymore. He sets setting the Free Peoples to try and come together to defeat Sauron. And let's look at how many different ways Gandalf impacts that and sets things into motion for the Free Peoples to be able to win, because he is the most impactful player for the Free Peoples. For the first part of this, he is the one that really gets the Ents involved, right? He is the one that involves them in this conflict with Sauron, which inevitably is what takes down Isengard, something that could have taken Rohan. Hell, a long siege could have happened, right? With the Ents, that solves that issue and it frees up Rohan to deal with the threat of Sauron instead of Saruman. If we look at Gandalf, he is the person to bring the rest of the Rohirrim to Helm's Deep to help win that battle. Without Gandalf, those things are not attainable. It's very likely that Rohan falls without Gandalf. And we even look further as we go further down. Gandalf is this person that goes to Minas Tirith, and without Gandalf, Minas Tirith would have fallen way before Rohan even gets there. He is someone that's able to shore up the defenses while the short amount of time he has. He's able to help signal for Rohan's help. Gandalf is this character that gives us advice and is this wise character, but also takes a lot of action. And he is the person that also helps in planning for the diversion, basically, of all of our characters going to the Black Gate to basically have all these orcs from Mordor pour out of the Black Gate to give Frodo and Sam a chance. And Gandalf is kind of our look into hope of Frodo and Sam still having a chance, because at this entire time, Gandalf really doesn't know that Frodo and Sam are still alive until he gets confirmation a little later that they are still alive and that their journey is still continuing. Gandalf is this character that sets everything in motion. And when we talk about how I talked about in that Sauron video, where 99 out of 100 times Gandalf and the Free Peoples lose the War of the Ring and Sauron wins, Gandalf does all the things possible to make that 1 out of 100 chance happen. Everything was going towards Sauron winning. And because of the path Gandalf sets and the people he chooses as companions and involving the Shire heavily, they are able to defeat Sauron. So I think this is a video where we look at Gandalf as a character and appreciate what he does, because he can go under the radar at times when we look at his action. You know, a lot of attention gets drawn to characters like Aragorn, like Frodo, like Sam, for a good reason. But Gandalf is the character that really puts all of the pieces together and allows for these things to happen. And Gandalf himself, if he had not been as involved with the Fellowship, if he had not been there, who is to say if the ring doesn't go back to Rivendell and fails? And the whole party fails? Because the mountains at this point were impassable to the party. Moria, Gandalf is the only one of the company that would have known how to get them through Moria. Aragorn had been in there once, but it would appear from the eastern gate, and he never really, I don't think, made it to the western side, so he had really no recollection there. And what was the last path? Going all the way down to Isengard, which is what Saruman would have wanted. They would have been caught and killed. And also, you also had the idea that there were wargs following them all the way up to the gates of Moria. So the option would have been to try and turn back for Rivendell, and at that point, it would have been too late. So again, we see Gandalf as this character that is the reason the Free Peoples win and peace comes back to Middle-earth. So thank you guys all for watching this short video on Gandalf and kind of appreciating him as a whole. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. If you guys have any video suggestions, let me know down in the comments and I will try to get to them. All right, bye guys.